Okay, now I am going to set Ann up. We just ran her through a range of motion in abduction with rotation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the same setup, but we're going to run her with just the adduction and abduction. In order to do that, I have to turn off the rotation motor, which again was motor B. So as you'll see here in just a minute, anytime we want to make a change to any of the functions in this column, we have to reprogram our handset. So the very first thing I'm going to do is press the top two buttons together. And you'll notice that they have yellow lines connecting them. And that is showing me, and when the patient does this, showing them that the first thing to do to make a change is to press both those buttons simultaneously. So I am going to do that. That will put me into programming mode. Now that I'm in programming mode, I can change any of the functions in this line here, in this group of buttons. Right now, I want to turn the B motor off. So I will come down to the motor on-off button. I'll push it, and it'll tell me that we are on motor A, and it says press plus or minus to turn it on or off. I don't want to turn off motor A because, again, motor A is doing that main motion. So what I'm going to do is hit my motor's on-off button again, and now it shows me that I'm on motor B, and it says press plus or minus. Plus or minus will turn the motor on or off. So I'm going to hit the minus button, and now motor B is off. So now I've shut that B motor off. I can go ahead and hit start to save the change, and now I'm going to hit start again to get Ann moving, and now you're going to see that we are only working off motor A. She's just going to lift her arm in adduction and abduction. Again, we're not pulling her away, we're not jamming her up. It's like if she was just naturally lifting her arm in abduction and adduction on her own. I'm going to hit start again, and we'll go ahead and continue to take her up a little bit higher. So now our motor B is not, it's turned off. So we're not rotating the arm at all. All we're doing is adduction and abduction. And at the very top of the motion there, that is going to bring her arm in close, tight to her head when it gets to the very top. And now it'll continue back down. Okay, so the first time we moved her, we did so with both motors with the rotation. This time we have motor B off. We're only doing the abduction motion, and you can see it's a very natural movement when set up properly. Okay, now what we would do is explain to the patient how to use the patient control. This is the toughest part about setting up a shoulder machine, is explaining the hand control. So I'm going to try to do this as easily as I can and show you the way that I do it. We're also going to set this back to do both motions together. Okay. Now, when I set up a patient, I like to leave them with the machine as close to the beginning protocol as possible. A typical shoulder protocol is going to be 30 to 60 degrees of adduction, abduction, and usually half of the amount of the adduction, or I'm sorry, the abduction, we're going to do half of that. We're going to do the rotation. So if I'm doing 60 degrees of abduction, I'm usually going to do 25 to 30 degrees of external rotation. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and quickly turn motor B back on. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to set the machine initially for the patient for the beginning range of motion. So I'm going to set, first I'm going to set the adduction, which is going to be the lower end. Now, on a patient like Ann who's very thin, we can take her all the way down to the minimum, which is 30 degrees of adduction. That is as low as the CPM will go. And you can see here with Ann, we still have clearance there. It's not digging into her body. With somebody like me, it's right against me and not uncomfortable. If we had a very wide patient or a patient with a big belly, then we may only be able to come down to 35, and I've even had cases where we could only come down to 40 before he was going to start digging into the gut. So for most patients, we'll be able to take them all the way down to 30, but if you have a patient that's wide or fat, then we're going to have to come down just as much as we possibly can without digging down into them, okay? So we want to first set how far down the machine is going to go into the adduction. Next, I'm going to use the adduction-abduction button to flip the arrow to the right, and now I am going to set the abduction or the upper end. So I'm going to begin, we're going to begin with 60, but I am going to set it for 55, and then I'm going to have the patient add the extra 5 degrees. So I'm going to leave it at 55, and I'm then going to go down to the rotation and arrow to the left. We don't want to change how far down, so we're going to flip the arrow to the right, and I'm going to go ahead and set, in this case, we're going to go to 60, but I'm going to set 25 so that I can teach the patient and have them add the extra 5 degrees. Now that I'm done making changes, I'm going to hit start to save that data. I'm going to get start going again, and now you see here that we have line A and line B, and it's going to stop on me, so we're going to hit start again. Okay, now you're going to see here we have line A and line B. So when you look at your hand control, motor A runs across the top from left to right, and motor B, or the rotation, runs on the bottom from left to right. The numbers to the very far left are always how far down the machine is going to go. And typically, there's never a reason for a patient to change how far down the machine is going to go. In fact, this is where most patients mess up, is that they end up changing how far down the machine is going to go, and then they get it all out of whack. So we want to always tell the patient to leave these numbers alone. The numbers to the very far right are how far up the machine is going to go to. So right now, motor A is going down to 30 and up to 55. Motor B is going down to 0 and up to 25. So how far down on the left, how far up on the right. The numbers in the middle always show you the current position of the orthosis, okay? So you see there, we just hit the bottom. The arrows are pointing to the right now. The orthosis is coming up. Those numbers are gonna go up until they hit the 55 and the 25. And then the patient will start to go down. The arrows will flip back over and point down, and now those numbers are going to run down until they hit the lower end. So our numbers in the middle, it's actually just a little bit to the right of the middle, are always going to run between the lower setting and the upper setting. Okay? Now, what I'm going to explain to the patient is that they should only get in and out of the CPM when it's all the way at the bottom. When they go to change the range of motion, they actually move the arm orthosis to the position they want it to, and then they save it there. So I also going to want her, when she changes the range of motion, I'm also going to want her to start from the bottom. So we're going to let it come to the bottom, and we're going to stop it, okay? So from now on, that is where you're going to get in and out of the machine, and that's where the position you're going to bring it down to whenever you go to get out of the CPM.